Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to use useEffect and the fetch API to get the data from JSON server and display it in our React application. Now, as you know from previously, this data that's being shown here, it's actually local data declared inside of our application, this array right here. But the problem is when we refresh the app, this array is always reset to these default values. Now, in order to fix this, we're going to switch to a local database, and that's why we created the local db.json file. So right now what we're going to do is, instead of defining these values right here, we're actually going to fetch them when the component first renders, and we're going to set them in our current state. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to clear the default values, and right now our to-dos is going to be an empty array by default. So if you go back, you can see that there are no to-dos. And now what we're going to do is we need some way to fetch the data from the database and set our state when the component first mounts. Now the way to do this is, like I said previously, we're going to use useEffect. Now useEffect is very simple, and I'm going to use the snippet to quickly type it out. I'm going to delete these default values. And right now, we're going to use something called the fetch API. And as we know, our information actually lives inside of this link. So localhost 3000, this is the link of our server, and /todos actually returns all of the to-dos. So we need some way to get the information from this link, and we're going to use the fetch API for this. Now the fetch API allows you to get information from certain links. So yeah, whenever you want to access information from a link, you should pretty much always use the fetch API. Now, the way we're going to do this is we want to fetch the to-dos the first time the component mounts, so we get the default to-dos, right? So in order to do this, like I said previously, we can remove the return here. And right now, our useEffect has an empty array of dependencies, which means it's only going to run once, which makes sense because we only want to fetch the to-dos the first time the component mounts. Now, so I'm going to use the fetch API. So I'm going to type out fetch, and I'm going to give it a link. Now the link is going to be this one. I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it. And as you can see, this link is going to return the to-dos. So I'm going to type out .then. Now, fetch returns a promise. So a promise is not like regular like functions in JavaScript. A promise is a type of, is a value that we don't really know when it's going to end. And there's a special syntax to actually get the result of a promise. Now, if I hold my mouse over the function, you can see that it returns a promise of type response. So we do get the response, but it's wrapped in a promise, which means we don't get it immediately. Now, in order to access the information from a promise, you can use the .then syntax or the await and async syntax. In our case, we're going to use the .then to keep it simple, because in order to use the async await, you need to create a function and define it as async. So to keep it simple, we're going to type fetch, and we can attach the method .then. Now .then is going to be called when fetch finishes, and we're going to get the response. And of course, this is going to be a function, and it will return. Now first of all, I'm going to check if the response is okay. Okay. Now what this does, so we're going to fetch the to-dos, and when that's done fetching, we're going to get the response here. And now we check if the response is okay, and if it's okay, we return the information as a JavaScript object. Now the .json method actually takes the text, which is actually JSON, and it formats it into a JavaScript object. So it basically takes this array and turns it into a JavaScript array with valid JavaScript syntax. Okay, so Now, .json itself returns a promise, so we also need to chain another .then. Now, I'm gonna type out here .then. As usual, we're gonna get the data, and then we're gonna set the to-dos to that data. Now, for now, I'm gonna comment this out, and I'm gonna log the data, just to make sure we're getting it successfully. So what's happening here is we run fetch, and we try to get the information from this link. Once that's done fetching, we get the response. We check if the response is okay, and then we return the response and parse it as a JavaScript object. And after this is done, because this is also a promise, so we also need to chain another .then, and this is where we actually get the actual data. And now we're going to console log the data and check that it's successful. So I'm going to go back to our app, and I'm going to refresh, go to the console, and I'm going to refresh one more time. And as you can see, we get the array twice because, like I said previously, use effect for the first time runs twice in development. This is pretty normal behavior. It's only run for the first time, so don't worry about this too much. Now, as you can see, this is the result of our JSON request. You can see we have the exact same information as before. And in order to actually see this, I'm going to go to the network tab, and I'm going to refresh. And like I said, it runs twice for the first time inside use effect, so this is cool. And I'm going to check one of these requests. You can see the link is localhost 3000/todos. It's of type get, and the response is 200 OK, which means it's successful. I'm going to check the preview of the response, and you can see we actually get the information that we need. And if you check the response, this is the raw format, and this is just a formatted version inside of the developer tools. Okay, and yeah, so this is actually a network request, and this is how most applications work. You load the application, and then that application sends a request to a server and gets the information and then displays the information to you. Okay, now the only thing that we need to do, since we do have access to the information, all we need to do is to set the to-dos to that information. So I'm gonna uncomment this, and I'm gonna set the to-dos to the information returned by the server. I'm gonna go back, and you can see now we actually see the information. So I'm gonna refresh, and okay, it's not very clear now, but I'm gonna go to the network tab and slow it down intentionally. I'm gonna set it to fast 3G, and I'm gonna refresh. You can see that it's blank for a second, and then the list shows up. So, okay, you see, it's not instant. That's because I throttled down the network speed in order to slow down the response from the server, just to show you that it doesn't load instantly. There's actually a small delay. But in most applications, they're fast enough so you don't actually notice how quickly it loads. But in most applications, there's also usually some kind of loading indication to show you something while you wait for the data to fetch. Now, this is actually very easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do this in my next video. And yeah, so this is the most basic way to fetch information from a server and setting the state as that information. Like I said, most of the time, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be fetching data from the server and sending data to the server. So you're going to be getting data from the database and updating the database. So yeah, that's how you manage to-dos with the use effect and the fetch API. Pretty much this is all you need to interact with the server. So yeah, in my next video, I'm going to show you how to handle loading states, and see you in the next one.